All right, guys, so today I am here at this big pile of wood chips, and I'm gonna talk to you guys about how to use them in your garden to benefit you, benefit your garden, and get the most out of these beautiful, beautiful chips. So let's get right into it. The first way that you can use these chips is just to leave them in a big pile. So if you have a lot of space, and you can get a lot of wood chips, and you can get these from different companies, right? Companies that cut down trees. A lot of times you can find companies that will just come and deliver wood chips like this, like huge amounts. You can also use things like Chip Drop, which is a local service, and they will connect you to people that do this kind of work. Now, you can just leave it in a pile like that, and eventually it will break down. Now, I will say this could take years to break down fully enough that you can actually add it into your garden. So unless you have a massive space like I'm standing at now, there's about 8 acres here. So obviously we have the space to do this on this property, but most people in their home gardens don't want to just have these big piles of chips and just wait around for 2, 3, up to 4 years before they can use them. So if that doesn't sound like something you want to do, let's talk about another more practical way that you can use wood chips in your home garden. And that is by using them for pathways and for borders around your garden. So like what is behind me, let me flip this camera and show you what I'm talking about. Now, this is kind of pathways, but also borders for each individual plot. This is a community garden that I work with. But you can kind of see this as a border. Now you can see the grass is starting to jump in, right? You have some wild onions and some grass. However, if we didn't have this border, this wood chip border, the grass would easily jump into your garden. Now, that's a kind of a bigger scale, but at your home garden, you can do this as well. You can use those wood chips, and especially if you're doing like a no-dig garden or a minimal dig garden, even if you're tilling though, you can put them around your garden bed. And you can use, 3, 4 inches of these chips, even more. I think I put like 5, 6 inches around these plots, and it will really, really, really help with keeping those weeds and grass out, right? Keeping it from jumping into your garden area, which we don't want, because that means it's more work for you. So using them like that, using them as this border around your garden can be a huge help in terms of keeping the weeds and grass out of your garden. Now, let me walk over to this next area and show you what we have going on with this. And this is more of like a pathway, right? Not necessarily a border, but this is going to be all planted eventually. That area and all throughout here is going to be all planted. And this is going to be the walkway. This is super, super good, like I said, for just helping weed control, right? It is nice to walk on this. It feels good, and it's just gonna really help control the weeds. You can see that there is basically no weeds. Boom, there's one weed in this pathway, but not too many, where right outside the pathway, there are tons of weeds. Now, when you're doing this, I recommend putting down some cardboard just like this, and then you can just put those chips right on top and really, really control the weeds. Now, let's go to the final way that I would use wood chips in a garden. So let's talk about it right now. So the last way that I would use wood chips in a home garden is in an orchard, right? If you are growing fruit trees, which we plan to grow throughout this patch right here, which is it's really more than a patch, right? It's 8 acres, so more than a patch. The lawn people just came up. That's what you are hearing in the background. But in a orchard setting where you're planting trees and fruit trees, they really like a good fungal component, right? A nice, hefty fungal component to the soil. And how you get that fungal component, at least one way, is by wood chips breaking down. All that white stuff that you see when your mulch or your wood chips start breaking down, that's called mycelium. And that is the fungal body, right? So if you're kind of thinking about it like a tomato plant, you have the tomato plant and then you have the fruit, right? So in mushrooms, you have the mycelium, which is like the tomato plant, and then you have the mushrooms, which would be like the tomatoes. And then you have seeds and you have spores with mushrooms, but whatever, that is either here nor there for this video. But my point is that white stuff that you see on the wood chips is mycelium, and it's very good for your soil because you really want that fungal component, especially with the fruit trees. So if I was planting this area here with fruit trees, I would basically, as much as I could, put wood chips around the whole area and just grow in basically wood chips. Now, I wouldn't necessarily grow in the wood chips. Some people do. I've seen like the documentary Back to Eden. If you guys have ever watched that, it is wild how he's basically growing in wood chips. But what I'm talking about is you plant, obviously, the tree in the ground, but then you just heavily mulch around them. And you heavily mulch the area around them with wood chips. And as those wood chips break down, they're going to add an amazing fungal component. Now, on the pathways that I mentioned earlier, that will also break down and add a very good fungal component to your soil. So you're not just keeping the weeds at bay, but when that pathway actually breaks down, you are really improving the soil's health, adding a bunch of good fungal component to the soil. So that is basically how I would go about using wood chips in my home garden or home orchard. They can be a fantastic tool if you know how to do them. Now, a couple more things. Let's talk about what not to do. So what would I not do when it comes to wood chips? And what I really wouldn't do and what I recommend new gardeners not do, because I see a lot of new gardeners do this and I think it's a mistake, is just taking a handful and putting it on your veggie garden or a wheelbarrow full or whatever, right? And they use it as mulch. Now, the problem with this, I think there's a couple problems. One is it is going to steal some of the nitrogen. As it breaks down, it will steal nitrogen from the soil and from your plants, right? So your plants will be lacking nitrogen if you just put that on your garden. So I really would not recommend just putting it over your raised beds or your veggie garden. Maybe a flower garden, a perennial flower garden could be okay, but a veggie garden, I really wouldn't recommend it. Also, it just makes it harder to plant, right? When you're planting some annual things, which most veggies are going to be annual plants, you want it easy, right? You want easy accessibility. You want to be able to plant your seeds, and once they're done, you want to be able to go back and just easily plant more seeds. So using something like straw or using something like leaves, it just makes it a lot easier. When you have a thick layer of wood chips over your garden, when you're transplanting stuff, you got to move it all out of the way. You have to move it out of the way when you're planting seeds. The seedlings, if any of that wood chips get over the seedlings, they could really hurt the germination process because it's not light and fluffy. It is pretty hard for a seedling to try to come out of a big pile of wood chips that are just on top of your veggie garden. So I really wouldn't recommend just putting that over a raised bed or your veggie garden for those reasons. But there is so many reasons to use wood chips. They can be a fantastic tool to use as the pathways and all the other ways that I just talked about. Guys, let me know how you use wood chips in your home garden, or if you have an orchard or whatever you have. Let me know how you guys use them. I'm so happy and grateful for this growing community of people that just want to live differently, that just want to reconnect with nature, grow some of your own food, and just become healthier. That is what the Pioneer community is all about. The Pioneer trade stations were up to 15 states and counting. You can become a host. So there's little farm stands that are kind of like the little free libraries, and everybody just trades stuff in your community. You can go find the map on our website. I'll put that information down below, pioneergarden.com, if you want to learn more. And if you want to become a host yourself, you can. You can go sign up on our website. So guys, thank you for being here. Let's keep on growing the movement. Until next time, I love you guys. Peace out.